Howdy folks, high value DMD. Don't just give me your subscription, but please let me earn it. Let me earn your like and let me earn your comment. Well, just like that, my wife and I were back in the good old US of A. And I can't say enough how good it is to be here on US soil. We recently took an international trip out to England and to Sweden. And in this video, I wanted to debrief you guys on that trip. I'm mainly going to be focusing on the positives and any potential negatives or red pills I'm going to drop on your heads. I'll make that video in a couple days. This is the first international trip I have taken in 7 years. The last time was in college, and I took a couple of classes over in Spain, Spanish Lit, Spanish History. This time around, this trip was on me. This was the first trip, big trip I've taken, really as a full-grown adult, making adult money, taking my wife over there. So it was a slightly different perspective in that vein. But it was great. We left here on a Saturday, I think it was. We left on a Saturday, and we ended up getting to London Heathrow on a Sunday morning. There we rented a car. In the first portion of the trip, we went down to Plymouth, England. Now that is south of England. That is southwest. My mistake. I'm getting my cardinal directions mixed up. We went down to southwest England, and we visited Plymouth because we have a familial connection there. And I must say, it was good to see a smaller place in England. Plymouth has about 200,000 people. That's still bigger than where I grew up. But in comparison to a place like Birmingham or London, that's very small. That's peanuts. You know, people in London would probably laugh and say these people are hicks down here in Plymouth. But I thought it was charming, man. Plymouth is a good small community. It's got a lot of history. It's a naval town, if you didn't know that. I mean, it's a major port in Europe. It's the largest naval base in Western Europe, if I understood that correctly. If it's not, no matter what, it's a major player. It's huge for the Royal Navy. And so there was that element to it. We took a boat tour, and we got to see some of the Royal Navy ships, like the destroyers. We saw some submarines. Probably the biggest aspect, historical significance to Plymouth, is where the Mayflower set off to go to the New World, to start a colony. And it originally wasn't supposed to take off from Plymouth. It was there was another ship that was supposed to go with the Mayflower. It's called the Speedwell, and there was some involvement in the Netherlands of a ship taking off there, and then they met up in England, I think a little bit more northeast, and then they tried to go out, didn't succeed. Tried from Plymouth, 300 miles out. They had to come back because of the leak and the Speedwell, I think. Anyway, the Mayflower is the only ship that made it to the New World. Super fascinating. I don't know everything about history, but I can definitely appreciate it, especially something like that. So we got to see where the Mayflower took off from. That was super nice. But overall, Plymouth was just a calmer town, a slower moving town. Now there's the shopping center and the more hustle and bustling part, but overall, Plymouth was just a delightful place, and I highly recommend it. It's very near to Cornwall, which is the last whatever county or province it is. That was more west down there. Apparently Cornwall is known for its beaches, and I loved it. I would go back to Plymouth at some point. I don't know when that would be. What else about Plymouth before I leave Plymouth? We did a couple little excursions from Plymouth. We went to Dartmoor and walked this valley area, which was cool, but I mean, don't get me wrong. I've been to Yellowstone now. I've been into Seattle. We've taken a lot of trips this year because this is our year to relax and to have a good time, go on vacations. for the first time in my 20s. I've pretty much studied my entire 20s away, so this is our time. Dartmoor was neat, but it wasn't anything. It's not like a national park in the U.S. But so that was that. We went to some pubs, we had some beer, had some pastries. Overall, a wonderful experience. So after Plymouth, we decided to go back to London, but we didn't stay in London just yet. We decided to visit another country, and that's where we went to Sweden. So what we did is we flew up to Stockholm, and we got an Airbnb. And that was wonderful because, and mind you, we stayed in an Airbnb in Plymouth as well, and in Stockholm. And I think that's a great way to do it. For one, obviously you have some amenities, you have the ability to cook some food if you want to save some money. If you're traveling with a larger party, it's more like a home, like you're used to. And it really makes you feel like that you're in the culture, right? You're living a true English experience. You're living in a true Swedish home. So that's what we did in Stockholm. We got there pretty late in the evening, and we just relaxed. And then when we were in Stockholm, we did a couple excursions. We took a boat tour over to this town called Vauxhall. So we did that. We saw the island. We took this walking tour. Keep in mind, it's fall, so all the leaves are wonderful and beautiful. It was just incredible. Day 2 of Stockholm, we went up to Uppsala, which there's an old church that is on burial mounds of Viking burial mounds. Super, super old church. It's probably around like 1000 AD. And so that was wonderful to see, like the super old Christianity and just the reverence of the church. And it wasn't the most ornate church I've ever seen. Not even close. I've seen cathedrals in Spain, and now I've seen cathedrals in London. And this wasn't that, but I almost preferred it in a way. You'd have to look it up. It's in Uppsala. If you've seen the show Vikings, which I've seen it before, but we've been rewatching it prior to the show, just for historical reasons. Uppsala is supposedly where some sort of golden temple was amongst the Vikings, and where they went to sacrifice, human sacrifices, animal sacrifices every 9 years. Not a whole lot is known about Vikings, to be honest, from what I have seen. There's just sort of like secondhand, third-hand accounts, like stories that have been traded around. And so yeah, we saw Uppsala. We saw a lot of Viking runes. And so that was amazing. I mean, it's just incredible. It's like a sensory overload of material. And then the third day we did Stockholm. We saw the Vasa Museum, which is a old ship that was preserved in the brackish water of the Baltic Sea. And it was actually a disgrace to the Swedish people because it was supposed to be like a military, like a might, but their ship just sank in their harbor. And it was dredged up. After 333 years, perfectly preserved. I saw a literal ship, it's like something you'd see out of the Pirates of the Caribbean. Unbelievable. We saw the Royal Palace in Stockholm. So much to talk about. Viking Museum. Just unlimited, man. And so after Stockholm, we moved on to London. And my wife and I, we stayed there 4 nights. In London, man, I tell you, it was a delight. I enjoyed all aspects of the trip. London was... What did we do? I'll just start there. What did we do? Man, we saw the Tower of London. That's where William the Conqueror, when he invaded in 1066, that's where he ordained like the building of that building. It was meant for, like a fortress. It had a church in there. But ultimately it came down to like storing weapons. A lot of people were in prison there. Not as much torture, but it was used as a prison. And we saw all of the structure that was built around it. Essentially, it's a castle at this point. So we saw the Tower of London. We saw the Westminster Abbey. Of course we saw that. That's where every king and queen has been crowned since Edward the Confessor. That's what they say. Or maybe it was William the Conqueror. That's what they told us. I don't know if that's exactly true, but we saw the coronation chair of the the English monarchs, the British monarchs. It's just, I'm telling you, it's unlimited, man. We saw all the graves of the old monarchs, and so Tower of London, Westminster Abbey. We saw St. Paul's Cathedral, the center of the Church of England. Completely unbelievable, ornate. What's different, it's not made in the Gothic style. St. Paul's Cathedral was built in a Roman style, a Catholic style, so to speak, which was actually a point of contention in the time. But that was amazing. We saw crypts and more graves of people, of generals that fought against Napoleon at Waterloo. Unbelievable, man. Unbelievable. So we saw those three. We saw the Churchill War Rooms, which I could make a whole video on that by itself. The Churchill War Rooms. I saw where Winston Churchill sat down with his advisors, his generals, his chief of staff, to see and just to discuss the war effort. And essentially, what we were told, their plan was just to wait for the Americans to get involved. I saw the room where Winston Churchill would go and have a direct line to FDR. That was our president, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Really awe-inspiring as an American to see that, because it's hard to put into perspective how much my country has affected the world. But when you go and see that, and you see, little brother needs to be called to go and help the old world. Winston Churchill, in one of his speeches, he said something along the lines of the new world will have to come to help the old, and that's what we did. Those war rooms were unbelievable. Highly recommend that. So much history and fascinating. The tour guides were great. We saw the Tower Bridge right near the Tower of London. And, man, I'm just trying to recollect all of this. And we had some good eats. We went to some pubs near the hotel that we stayed at. We stayed at a wonderful hotel, of course. But the pubs were great. It really put me into the atmosphere of England, what it's like to be a Brit, man. Pubs are a big deal, and we have a drinking culture over here in the United States, but I think in general most Americans aren't going to go for a beer Tuesday evening, a Wednesday evening. That's what they do, man. They get off work, they go to a pub, and they hang out with their friends, and they have beer, and that's just what they do. So my wife and I, we got to experience just a bit of that for a moment. This one pub called Stanhope Arms, highly recommend. Another one called Zetland, the Zetland. Good food, good beer. And I have rambled on a lot, but one thing I want to drive home is I talked about reviewing the show Vikings. And this trip, a part of it was to in a way, a small part, not the main part, was sort of to reconnect with the past. You watch Vikings, and there was such an influence of the Norse culture in England. The histories are intertwined, and you learn more about England, and you learn about some of the lines of succession. We saw the Kensington Palace, by the way. Didn't get to see Windsor Castle. That's going to come up, and you just come to understand your people, so to speak, where you come from, who your ethnicity is, and like how division started. I've heard, well, there's some Scandinavian DNA in English people, in the British people today, and I didn't understand why, but now I understand more of the why, because I have seen it with my own eyes. I have seen where people like me come from. I'm also part Dutch, so one day I'd like to see the Netherlands. But that's special. A lot of Americans, we don't understand where we come from. We don't have that close connection unless your mother, father, or grandfather is literally from there. Probably more so mother and father rather than grandparents. So this was my little piece, this little token effort to reclaim that in a way. And I was almost hoping our flights would get delayed, and that we could stay and then go somewhere else. I was thinking of maybe popping over to Brussels or Paris with some extra time, but it came to an end. And when we got here, we were actually sick as a dog, my wife and I. My wife has COVID. I suspect I also have COVID. So we're recovering from that, and it's back to work for me very soon, back to the real world. But I will always remember England and Sweden, and I still remember Spain to this day. I miss Spain, and I already miss England and Sweden. I've gone to 3 countries with constitutional monarchies. I think that's so cool. And I want to go back. This is probably it, though, for a long time. This is probably it. I don't think we'll be going to Europe in the spring. We're going to be going to do more ski trips. We're going to be looking at houses, getting ready to get set up for what's to come, and that's my oral surgery residency. And so that this was our Europe trip, man. You know, we're going to have kids. We're going to go to residency, and we're going to come out, and who knows when we'll go again. But I enjoyed it while I could. I took advantage of every single second of it. And with that, I will leave you. I hope I earned your subscription. I hope I earned your like, and I hope I earned your comment. Let me know what you think below. Until next time.